Our story today begins with a strange and different day when something bizarre and terrifying appeared in the sky and no one understood what it was, nor did anyone imagine that this was the beginning of the end for all humanity. At first, people thought it was just an ordinary astronomical phenomenon. But the scientists knew the ins and outs and realized that behind this shape was a danger that would wipe the world out of existence. At that time, we meet our hero John, who is spending a very ordinary and pleasant day with his wife Allison and their son at home. Everyone was happy and having a great time, not expecting that their lives would be turned upside down in a few minutes. And suddenly, the television cut off and started broadcasting a breaking news emergency announcing that a very dangerous comet named Clark would pass close to Earth. And of course, this wasn't an ordinary comet because a giant part of it would land directly on Earth. The extent of the destruction that would occur after this impact was unimaginable and beyond any limits. As soon as John heard this news, he ran into the street and noticed all the birds fleeing rapidly in just one direction as if they sensed the impending disaster. Suddenly, a fierce and terrifying windstorm blew strong enough to sweep John away from the house and shatter the window glass. Everyone inside the house was, of course, terrified and began to realize that this was not just an ordinary natural phenomenon. No, this was the beginning of the catastrophe. And amidst this terror, John's phone rang and he received an official emergency message informing him that his family had been selected to go to a secret shelter designated to save a certain group of people to protect them. And of course, then when the neighbors found out about this, they were very upset and didn't accept this decision. They shouted angrily, saying if the world is ending, then everyone should survive, not just certain people. The situation was very difficult for John and he wished he could help all his neighbors. But my friend, the instinct to survive and his fear for his family made him take them and leave immediately. While on the way, they found the streets blocked and cars everywhere. This meant the disaster was imminent. John managed to get his wife and son to the airport with difficulty. The army was filling the place and securing it completely, and the whole situation was chaotic and everyone was running to secure a spot in the shelter. But the soldiers were only letting in those with an official permit and specifically chosen by name. John and his family were actually able to get inside. But disasters, my friend, never come alone. As soon as they opened the suitcase, they discovered that their son's insulin medication was missing. Unfortunately, they forgot it in the car. And of course, the boy has diabetes and can't live without insulin. John asked his wife to board the plane with the boy while he quickly went to get the medicine and return. Although she refused to go without him and went to talk to a soldier, telling him that her husband was getting their son's medicine and they needed to wait for him, that move was the biggest mistake she made. And the strict military regulations were preventing any sick person from entering the shelter. Based on that, the soldiers took Allison and her son and forcibly brought them to the control room with a person in charge there. She completely refused to let them board the plane and told them to forget about the shelter. At that time, John got the medicine and returned to the airport, but he didn't find his wife or son, so he went inside the plane looking for them like a madman, not caring about anyone. But unfortunately, he didn't find any trace of them. In the middle of his search, he spotted a soldier with insulin medicine in his hand and asked him about it. John replied to him and said that it was his son's medicine, but they prevented him from entering and told him they wouldn't take anyone sick. At this point, John's body froze from the shock and he ran to get off the plane quickly, but the door was closing, and because of his very bad luck, suddenly the situation outside the airport deteriorated and people went out of the army's control and stormed the gates to board any plane and save themselves. And amidst the chaos, a stray bullet hit the fuel pipe, causing gasoline to leak everywhere. Suddenly, the fire caught it and a terrifying explosion occurred in the plane. And not even a single cockroach survived. Allison saw the explosion from afar as she was escaping. It became almost impossible for John to reach his wife and son. In desperation, Allison sent him a quick message to let him know they were heading to her father's house. John returned to his car amidst the people running to other planes. He also noticed his wife's message. That way, he understood where they were. And his only goal in life became to reach them no matter what, and Allison went to a pharmacy to get medicine for her son while she was gathering the medications. A group of thugs and thieves attacked the place, so she ran and got into a car with some people to escape. When the car owner found out they were a family chosen for the shelter but didn't make it because of her son's health condition, he cunningly forced Allison out of the car and threw her onto the street, then kidnapped the boy and drove off with him. Meanwhile, John is driving and trying to reach them. For his family, suddenly another part of the comet came down and caused terrifying destruction on Earth. Everyone started running everywhere, but John survived miraculously. He found a military transport truck heading to Canada and joined them. Inside the vehicle, he met a man who told him shocking information. He said there is a secret underground shelter in Greenland prepared only for selected individuals. These people were carefully chosen to rebuild the Earth and the world after the disaster. Here we learn that John is an architect, which is why his name was on the lists. And with them are doctors, engineers, and experts in all fields. While they were talking, a sneaky person noticed the bracelet on John's wrist. Then he understood that this was his ticket to enter the Greenland shelter, so he got greedy and tried to take it from him. When John refused, he threatened him and they got into a fight which caused the vehicle to overturn. Everyone fell onto the road and many people died. But John turned out fine and survived. As for Allison, she was standing on the road begging for a ride, but no one paid attention to her, so she decided to run on foot to the nearby airport. At the airport, the vile man who kidnapped John's son arrived. He tried to deceive the army by claiming that the bracelet with the boy belonged to them and that they were his family, but unfortunately, the permits got lost in the crowd. The soldiers were about to believe him until the boy screamed and said, "These are not my family," so the army arrested the impostors and took custody of the boy. At that moment, Allison arrived at the airport and kept searching until she found her son in the rescue camp, hugging him while crying with joy. The doctor there told her that there is a military transport vehicle going to Canada soon and she and her son can get on it. Indeed, John also arrived in Canada and went to his father-in-law's house but found no one. Suddenly, his phone rang and his wife told him they were on the main road, so he rushed to them. Their reunion after all that suffering was like a miracle. But there was still no time for joy because John told them that the main comet hadn't hit the ground yet and the real destruction was still on its way. They had to reach the Greenland shelter by any means because it was their last chance to survive. His wife begged his father to come with them, but he refused and chose to wait for his death there, so the family left, their hearts aching with sorrow. The road was like a battlefield, and the comet fragments were falling from the sky like rain, destroying everything. John was racing against time to catch the last plane. When he reached the airport, he found the plane preparing for takeoff. So he parked his car in the middle of the runway right in front of the plane and forced it to stop. The pilot got out yelling and was angry. John told him that they were a family chosen for the shelter. The pilot refused and said there was no space left. But John threatened him that he wouldn't move the car from the runway and would ruin the entire takeoff if they weren't allowed on, so the pilot reluctantly agreed and led them on. Just as the plane took off, the giant comet hit the earth. An explosion shook the sky.